Welcome to Dad Space. You found it. Dad Space. For dads by dads, a podcast designed with you in mind as a dad. Today we have a special guest. Mike Mannix is on. We're going to talk about, so many things. Pirates, sailing, family, being a dad. Some great insight from Mike Mannix today on the podcast, and I'm so happy to share it with you here on Dad Space. Here we go, Mike Mannix. Sail away with me. And Mike on Dad Space. Welcome, everyone, to Dad Space. Here we are tonight with a man of the sea, as you can see behind him on video here. I'm pretty sure he's not a pirate, but just in case, do not confuse this gentleman with Johnny Depp. This is Michael J. Mannix. He's here with us tonight. Never been a pirate in your past life, I'm pretty sure, but welcome to Dad Space. How are you?
Thanks, David. Yeah, no, maybe, my hair's a little too short, but,
really?
Maybe I did have a wand way back in the day to be a pirate.
So for those listening, and I can't see, so there's beautiful ships in behind and pictures on the wall, and at no point during this will there be any plundering during this podcast. 100% guarantee there'll be no plundering. So that's great. So we give you that as our guarantee and our promise for this episode. Welcome. So am I going to call you Michael, Mike?
Yeah, please,
Captain Mike.
Call me Mike. Mike is good.
How about Captain Mike?
Captain Mike is even better, actually. Michael was when I was in trouble. Okay. Anytime I was in trouble, it was Michael. And then, I grew up in a time where it was still okay to hit your children. So when it was Michael Joseph, that meant dad was coming home and it was going to be not a great night.
Okay, so I remember hearing that too. Wait till your father gets home.
Yes,
right.
Exactly. Yes.
So we don't live in that. Hopefully, we don't live in that same thing today.
No.
But when you heard those words as a kid, wait till your dad gets home, wait till your father gets home, what did that spark in you as a kid?
Sheer terror.
Right?
Because you had to wait. The worst part, I think, was the waiting. Because, depending on when you were messing up and when you got the threat.
And for those listening, okay, so there was no cell phones. There was no giving dad a heads up to what he was walking into. You heard that car pull in the driveway. You heard the door shut. You heard the footsteps coming up on the steps. And you're like, oh, no. Because, again, there's no lawyers.
That's pretty accurate.
There's no lawyers to plead your case.
Right, exactly.
Right? There's one version of the truth.
Right.
That is probably not the way you would word it as a kid.
No.
Here comes dad.
Right. Exactly.
So that's not your experience with your kids today, I anticipate.
Oh, no. Absolutely not. I actually have, I'm very blessed. I have a really incredible relationship with my children. I think you and I had mentioned prior when we spoke, and that's why I'm so excited to be on Dad Space.
Mm-hmm.
For a good long time, about 7-8 years, I was a single dad raising my children.
Wow.
All on my own. And, I have to tell you, for as scary and terrifying as it was, my son was 10 and my daughter was 7 at the time. And I was sitting on the executive board of a global BPO, business process outsourcing. I was traveling everywhere. And then, to have your world turned upside down and then try to be both parents was terrifying. But it was such a blessing in so many ways, because today I have 2 incredible children. And now I also have 2 incredible stepchildren, because remarried, little Brady Bunch going on.
Nice.
My wife has 2.
Yeah.
And it was just, I would not have the relationship I have today. I was involved in every aspect of their lives. We just have something that I could have only wished for. And I'm very, very blessed that way. I'm not going to say my children are perfect and they know when dad's mad, but I can tell you, it wasn't like my dad.
No.
I can give them a look and I'm like, guys, and they'll stop.
Yeah,
so I'm lucky that way. Maybe they're a little less mischievous than I was. I don't know.
or they haven't been caught yet.
That's probably more the case, Dave. That's probably more the case.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I love that kind of, that you've been able to step in that situation and be that for your kids,
Yeah.
be that support, that strength, because again, there's a missing element in the family dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And you're going to have to step in there and fill that up. So
Right.
gush on your kids a little bit. Tell me how great
Sure.
they are.
Oh my God.
Come on.
So let's start. So my son is firstborn. He's now 24.
Nice.
And Mike is, by the way, we're very creative in the naming process in my family. He's actually the fifth Mike Mannix. So yeah, there was a whole lot of choice going on there.
Mm-hmm.
But he is actually a very, very, very high functioning special needs individual. And he didn't talk until the age of 5. He actually started to have speech, lost it, and didn't speak again until 5. And he had a ton of sensory issues, and, autism was thrown around and all these crazy terms. And, back then the spectrum wasn't as defined as it is today. And, you're looking at each other going, oh my God, what can we do? And how can we help? And, what is the kind of life he's going to have? It's terrifying. And I have to tell you that my little boy, who, could barely get words out and could really had trouble getting a thought out and, being able to speak coherently, ran for student body president in junior high school and had to give a speech on why he should be president in front of 1,200 students. And
wow,
for someone who has a hard time communicating in general, when he memorized his speech, he was flawless. And it was just, it brought tears to everybody's eyes. He won. He got a standing ovation. And, he went on to get involved in student government in college, got his 4-year degree, graduated. He's out now working and got his car, and he's driving around. He's making it happen. And he is probably the biggest hearted person I've ever met, Mr. Positive, and always, about, any obstacle that was thrown in front of him, he overcame. I mean, it's just, it blows my mind. My daughter, Sarah, is now 21, and she just graduated from college, and God bless her. Don't know where she got the brains from, but she just graduated from Cornell, top 5% in her class. And she's just amazing. She's also an incredible actress, singer, dancer. She wanted to be, that's what she originally started going to college for, was theater, because that's her thing. And she's actually really gifted at it. Sophomore year, she goes, I can't make a living at this. I want to do something else. So she changed majors, she changed schools, and she now graduated, and she's looking for an apartment. Actually, her and her roommate just got an apartment in New York. They're going to be moving in hopefully sometime in the middle of the summer, because they both got really nice jobs out of school in Midtown Manhattan. So
beautiful.
Yeah, I'm a little terrified about that, be honest with you.
Yeah. But you can sense proud dad all over your face as you're talking, right? You never know where your kids are going to end up, right?
No. And and like I said before, I'm also incredibly blessed. I have 2 amazing stepchildren that she has a boy and a girl too. So that's actually how we met. My son is the oldest. Okay. Right? My stepson and my daughter are actually the same age, and we're in the same grade. And my stepdaughter is the youngest. She's 19. She's going into her sophomore year of college.
Wow.
And she's just amazing. I mean, the both of them are just absolutely amazing kids. And I met my wife at parent teacher night, of all places.
So there's taking your homework home with you. That's great.
Well,
That's
I gotta
amazing.
I gotta tell you, being out on the dating scene sucked.
Yeah.
It was a different ball game, from when we grew up, right? It wasn't the same thing as, swipe left, swipe right. It was crazy. Someone said, I learned the term. I don't know if you've ever heard the term catfished. I got catfished once, where someone pretends to be more than they are, and you meet them for the first time. You're like, whoa. So it was pretty terrifying. And
Yeah.
but anyways, with parent teacher night, I'm running between classes because I have two schedules in front of me, trying to see all the different teachers because they have 8 each. And I know most of Mike's because the special education teachers don't change that much; they stay the same. So I'm like, all right, let me go to Sarah's classes first. So the teachers, they're all dressed up and they stand outside the doors and they welcome you, and it's very, very nice. And so I'm coming from work. I'm in my business suit. I was with my old company at the time, and I see Sarah's teacher standing outside. She's all dressed up and she's looking at her phone. And I'm like, wow, Sarah's homeroom teacher's hot. So I go up and I'm like trying to be smooth, which I am so not. And I walk up and I'm like, hi, I'm Mike Mannix. And normally what I get is, oh my God, Sarah looks so much like you. I said, hi, I'm Mike. I'm Sarah's dad. And instead the look I got was something that could only be compared to as someone smelling something bad. She was like, makes this face and like, okay, I'm Bonnie, James's mom. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm sorry. I thought you were the teacher. I'm thinking, oh my God, she must think this was the worst line ever. Right. And then we sat next to each other at the little table and we just started chatting, and we just kept running into each other throughout the night at the because they had similar classes. And I'm not going to say I didn't take a look at her schedule to run into her by accident a couple times. And
there you go.
And then
the rest
7
is
years
history.
later, married 7 years now. So,
well, that's a great story, Mike. I love it.
Yeah. Thank you. It's been quite a ride. I'm going to tell you though, blending families is not easy. For all your listeners out there that have ever blended families, it's not easy to do. And there's a lot of dynamics, and there's a lot of, you have very different environments coming together, and children can react differently, and it's not always a cakewalk. And I'm sitting here telling you how great they are. Yeah, they are, but it wasn't always easy.
So, okay, Mike. So then that just jumps in my mind. Then what would you say is maybe one must do in a blended family situation from your perspective as a dad? Yep. And what's one thing you probably should avoid?
Those are great questions. Must do would be you need to communicate with each other. The parents need to, and you must be on the same page, and there must be the same rules for all the children. It can't be, oh no, they can get away with this, but they can't. Right? That is the kiss of death. And we had a little bit of that dynamic, and it was it's gotten better, right? We talked and we've communicated. I think that is the saving grace is communication. And I think the biggest thing is a lot of care and showing of support and love. And what I mean by that is I made it very clear to my stepchildren that I was not trying to be their dad. They have a dad who's a very good dad and very involved in their life. And all I was going to try to be for them was another support system to be there if they needed anything, and to be able to really, have their back if they needed it. Right. And because the last thing James was the oldest, he wants to who's this new dude? Yeah. In my house, because he was technically the man of the house. My now wife and her ex-husband, they were divorced for quite some time, just like I was. So it changes that dynamic. So that was tough. And you have my daughter coming into the equation, who is the woman of the house, and now is coming into another house because it was just me and the kids for the longest time. Yeah. So there's a lot of that dynamic, and I think a lot of open communication and being on the same page as parenting is critical. I would say something not to do. My personal belief is what I was saying before. Don't try hard to enforce yourself as their new parent. Because especially if the other parent is still involved, right? Now, if like, God forbid, there's a passing or something like that, you can almost, you start to take on that role in a way, but you never want to come in trying to replace that parent. I think that is the worst thing you could do to a child. Just think about that. from a psychological standpoint, it's the damage it would do to them. So that's my recommendation on what to do. and what to avoid, like the plague.
So you're basically, to summarize that as well, you're not a replacement, you're a resource.
Correct. Yeah, exactly. Right. Actually, that's perfect. That's exactly what I would say.
They both start with R's, so that's easy for me to remember. And we can go back to the pirate R. There's also so there's a lots of parallels there. We just kind of established that. So that's great. Or in my mind today, I don't know.
That's so funny.
So from your kids' perspective, that dynamic as well, you talked about yourself and your spouse, but the kids now blending themselves together, right? Yeah. Because you have these 4 personalities as kids.
Oh yeah.
Doing the side eye and like, now I'm supposed to, how does all this work? Right.
Right. Exactly. And they're very different. Mm-hmm. They're very, very, very different. And, but I can tell you that the blessing that came out of it is my daughter always wanted a little sister. And Julia, my stepdaughter, I think always wanted a big sister. And the two of them were just thick as thieves. Mm-hmm. And, and their rooms were next to each other. So they would knock on the wall and like, do you want to build a snowman type of thing? Right. Yeah. And they just have a really beautiful relationship. And what was great about it was Sarah just felt like she had to be like older than she was because, Mike had his challenges. And even though he's the older sibling at the time, now, it's a different ball game. She just felt like she had to like watch out for him and, all that kind of stuff. And so she was too old for her age. And Julia was, very, very, at the time, a little young for her age. So the two of them together, it was perfect. I mean, nice. She taught Sarah how to have fun and be silly. And Sarah, got Julia into the arts and, singing and performing and dancing and really brought her out of her shell. So that was great. And, and Mike and James, they're different kids and they're different guys. But, the best you could have hoped for back then was just that they get along. They don't have to like each other, just to get along. Yeah. And for the most part, after time they did. And now actually, they're actually, very friendly with each other. I mean, it's like, hey, when they see each other, when they come in, because, my son is here, but he's not, he's getting ready to go off on his own too. And he's working full time. And, James is still at college. He's got one more year because he changed majors. So he has one more year. So the kids are kind of in and out. Plus they also spend time at their dad's. So, they're there a little less than half, because their dad is very involved and, he's remarried. So the blessing for them is they actually have 2 sets of families that love them. So
that's good.
Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
So Mike, from your point of view as a dad, what are you seeing out there for dads and for men, single dads, blended families? What are you seeing out there as probably one of the things that dads need to develop and maybe become better at just in dealing with family?
Wow, that's an excellent question. I think if I can be really, really candid, I think a lot of dads feel they're showing their love by working hard. And I was one of those dads. I was traveling the world, traveling the country. I didn't grow up with money by any stretch. And I worked my tail off for everything that I have today. And all I had in my life was that drive to give my children the things that I didn't have growing up. And, that C title and success and blah, blah, and all that nonsense. I'm going to tell you, I can't believe I'm actually going to admit to this. I was traveling so much that one time I came home early from a trip and I came walking through the front door. My daughter must have been maybe 4, 5. She didn't recognize me and she ran off screaming stranger danger. What they teach the kids when, someone they don't know is around to avoid. Right. And I was like, oh my God. And, because I thought being the dad, I needed to be the provider and that's what I was supposed to do. And I think, and that's the way I was showing my love.
Hmm.
And I think a lot of dads and being the dad and then had to flip the script and become full, all involved dad. That's what the kids want. They rather have you around. They rather have you tell them that you love them. They want to hear that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't care what any kid says. And you know what? A lot of kids out there, they want you to set parameters. They want you to set guidelines and rules they need to follow because it shows you care.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of dads out there are so busy because they have this pressure to provide, especially, in today's economy. It's hard. And a lot of families, both parents are working, and they're both trying to provide. And I think as a dad, personally, straight to the children, they need to be there more. They want that. As a husband, you can't, you've got to be a partner, right? So you need to be able to take the load off of your spouse and vice versa,
mm-hmm.
and kind of help each other out, because that's the only way you're going to make it. I think that's critical. So I think I also think something that I see now too, and please forgive me if I digress here.
Mm-hmm.
As you know, my company that I have now is a leadership management development company, and we're launching a book called The 5 L's, and it's all about finding balance in your life. We're excited to be on your next podcast.
Yes.
But what I've seen and what we're trying to teach now too is children and people, are kind of measuring themselves against this fictitious version of reality that the media is portraying, especially social media, right? So from an adult perspective, it's everybody's highlight reel. Okay. It's not reality. I mean, you never see anyone post, "Oh, my kid sucks." Whoosh. You never see that.
No.
It's like, "Oh, look, my child just won the Nobel Peace Prize." It's like, and everything is great and everything is perfect and there's rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies. And hey, check out my new wheels. And they're not even their cars. They're standing in a parking lot somewhere and they saw a nice car that, it's not reality. And no one's life, no one has it all. I can tell you absolutely no one. And I know people that have absolutely nothing. And I know people that have more money than God, and no one has it all. There's always, we see 20% of the iceberg. You get under the water that, 80 to 90%. Life's messy, right? Yeah. You got to work at it. And I think we as individuals, we're measuring ourselves that way. Okay. I also see the children being impacted by that too, because now you've got this fictitious standard of what success is. So you have adults that are driving themselves for that and then putting that pressure down on the children. And I've seen that happen, especially in the town I'm in here in Long Island, New York. It's called Port Washington. You have a real blend of different status levels, and just seeing the pressure that's put on these children to compete, to get into colleges, to perform, and and it's just it's mind-boggling to me. And then on top of it, the children are measuring themselves against this fictitious social media. And I don't know I'm sure you've heard some of these APA articles, the American Psychological Association put out. There's actually a psychological issue now for young women because of Instagram and all these filters that they put on, because it makes them look like it's a different person, right? They have no fat and there's all this stuff going on. And these other girls look at themselves and go, "I don't look like that. Why don't I look like that?" And they start measuring themselves against it. And now the level of depression and suicide has skyrocketed because of it. And I think that, I think parents need to be aware of that, and they need to be able to support their child. So they need to get out of their own head on the fictitious of what success is, and pushing that down on their children. And then also being there for their children, realizing that the stuff they're up against is like nothing we were ever up against.
Yeah.
Think about it. Thanks to these things, you're on 24/7. It never stops. Children can be bullied around the clock.
Yeah.
You know that there's no respite. So the pressure the kids are under today is far greater than anything we ever experienced. And I'm talking, someone that has kids in their 20s. So obviously you can guess my age, but it's different. It's a different ball game, right? Like you said, there were no cell phones.
Yeah. No. Right.
Was when dad got home. So I think that's the long-winded answer to your question.
When was that one moment that stands out for you when you felt like, I'm a dad and I love it? Was there something that just like, you just like, wow, I'm actually doing it. I'm a dad.
Wow. Well, this is why you do what you do, because these are really good questions. I'm going to answer that in two ways.
Okay.
If you've never been a parent before, and I'm sure you can relate to this, you can't put it into words the moment that you hold your child for the first time.
Yeah.
And the love that you feel for that little squishy pink, human being that is now being placed in your arms. And I have to tell you, I know you're going to think this is crazy, but my ex-wife and I actually were told that the auditory system of the baby develops usually early on in the process. So that's why the baby recognizes the mother's voice right out of the gates, right? Because constantly hears her talking and relates, right? Finds comfort in that. So they said, you should talk to the belly every night. So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot, right? So, I did this with my son, Michael. And I would say the same thing every night. I'm like, hey, little guy, it's your dad. I love you. Can't wait to meet you. And, anyone looking from the outside would have thought I was nuts. I was crazy.
Yeah.
So, and anytime that, especially it got later on in the term, the baby doesn't stir as much. They're getting ready for the big move, so they don't move as much. And when his mom would get nervous, she'd say, "Oh, talk to the belly." So I would talk to the belly, and he'd start to move a little bit. So, fast forward to my son being born. I'm in the room with her. Right, I was there for the entire thing, trying to be as much of a support. Right, us dads, we're doing so much work. Breathe. But anyway, we're so supportive. They're taking care of his mom, and they hand him to me. Now he's like, he's still like he's fresh. There's still stuff all over. He's very fresh, and he's crying. And they've cut the umbilical, and I just started saying, "Hey, little guy, it's your daddy. Hello." And he stopped, turned his head, and opened his eyes. And the nurses and the doctors were like, oh my God, like in all their years of practicing medicine doing this, they never witnessed that. And that experience to me was the very first time I felt, oh my God, I'm a dad and this is freaking cool. I mean, I'm getting teary. I'm sorry. This is the coolest thing ever. And then the second time was when my daughter was born, and it was the same thing. You don't get used to it because it's the second time around. It's the same thing. And I think the time after that too was, especially being single dad on my own, just watching my children, my son at maybe his track meet, or my daughter performing on stage as the lead and just killing it, and me just thanking God every day how amazing they have turned out and what blessings they are.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I think I have that, you probably call it even a dad moment, right? That aha dad moment. I've had it a lot actually, because I don't take it for granted.
Nice.
I never take it for granted because it really is a blessing. I mean, not all the time.
Yeah. So Mike, before we close off, there's going to be a dad listening to this potentially that is going to be going into the hospital this week, this month, and is going to be experiencing this dad moment for the first time.
Yep.
If it was you, what would you want to know?
Wow. It's going to be okay.
Wow.
It's going to be okay. You're going to do better than you think you are. I know you're scared. You have no idea what you're doing.
Yeah.
You've gone through these baby classes where you've learned how to swaddle this little, creature. Mm-hmm. It's going to be all right. And you're going to do great. Trust yourself, be there for your spouse,
mm-hmm.
and don't make the same mistake I did. Be there as much as possible, especially in the early years.
Yeah.
Because those are the formative times and you'll never get them back.
Yeah. You're right. Mike is here with us on Dad Space. I love the talk and sharing about blended families, Mike. That's amazing. I love the passion and love for your kids. So much you've brought to us, Mike. I really do appreciate you being part of Dad Space tonight. It's really great.
I was honored to be here. I really appreciate you having me on. And I hope I helped at least one person. If I did that, then I guess I was successful tonight, right?
You were. You helped me.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it, Mike. This is so great. This is Dad Space, everybody. Mike is here with us, and he loves to sail. So let's sail away with Mike tonight. Thanks so much, Mike. Appreciate it.
Thanks, David. It was a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks for listening to Dad Space today. Go check us out on all of our social media, YouTube, all that great stuff. You can find us as Dad Space Podcast. Real simple. Dad Space Podcast, whether you're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, even YouTube. Email us, dadspacepodcast@gmail.com. We're always looking for great guests to come on the podcast. If you have any feedback for us, what do we do good? What do we need to work on? Let us know here at Dad Space. Looking forward to connecting with you on the next episode. It's coming up right now. Just let this keep playing and it'll automatically come. Follow us on your podcast app for more. Cheers. To you, Dad. Thank you.